Hey there, Nate here with the Volunteer Tech Vlog on the Live Sound 101 YouTube channel. That's a cool thing with my sunglasses there. Alright, this is going to be a media report for July 9th, 2017. So a little bit behind in posting some of these videos here. Got two media reports out back to back, boom, boom, boom. But yeah, I just wanted to report on the things that happened. So this is a Monday after. I didn't record the video yesterday on my drive home because I was hanging out with the family and we went right from church to something else. And so anyway, here I am. But when I get to record these the videos on Monday mornings, I get to do these like windbag sessions where I'm driving to work. So I get the video set up, read through my notes, and I'm just going to share some thoughts on live sound. Oh, I might even share... So this is going to be like a hybrid video. It's going to be a report, but then at the end I'm going to go into a topic called guessing as a live sound engineer and share some thoughts on that a little bit later. Because let's face it, we all have done it before. If you're a live sound person, you've guessed at something. All right. Media report. So rehearsal. Let's talk about dBSPL levels. So during the Thursday rehearsal, we hit 87.1. dBSPL A-weighted slow from the back of the room. During the pre-service rehearsal, we hit 88.7 dBSPL A-weighted slow as measured from the back of the room. And then during the actual service at 9:30 a.m., we hit 89.9 dBSPL A-weighted slow. So those were really the only notes I had written down. I'm going to get going. I'm going to get driving here on my journey to work this morning, and if I can stay on the driveway, on the grass. So what else can I talk? So the biggest thing that sticks out in my mind from this past Sunday was actually the fact that I'm training Josh B. So there's another Josh in the team. So he's our original Josh, and now we've got Josh number 2, who's a Padawan, a trainee, a protege, a mentee. So we're bringing this kid up, showing him the ropes, and his name is also Josh. So we just call him Josh B for the sake of this video and protecting the identity of the innocent. I don't know if everybody wants to have their name mentioned on YouTube videos. It's kind of a privacy thing, but I figured Josh B is safe enough. So he's a young man, I should say, a younger person, I was going to say. And he has expressed an interest in learning how to do live sound. And so he is being given that opportunity to learn. And he's also a musician, which is really good. So he plays either guitar or bass, or maybe both. But that is so huge when training somebody if they have a musical background. If you don't have a musical background as a musician, or you don't play any type of instrument or even sing, it's just a lot more to learn, because you have to learn a good chunk of the music stuff on top of the technology that enables the music to happen. So if you already are a musician, that is awesome. You're already way ahead of the game in my book from a training perspective. So Josh came and helped with rehearsal on Thursday night, and so we've got, as you know, you've been following the vlog, we've got the Yamaha TF5 digital mixing console, and we can mix remotely from an iPad using an app. And it was great. I just say this, it was great for me personally just to have a buddy, a live sound buddy, to actually do mic checks with, and just kind of team up and work together to get things running. It's so nice to have two people. I love it. And I love training new people too, so it was good. So he had the app, he was in there, I showed him how to log into the app and get to the utility page to name the custom fader, they call it, the custom mixer. So you can see all 32 channels and scroll through them all, or you can set up a custom fader bank and just pick off the 8 or 12 or 16 channels that you care about, and just have those kind of grouped together and in a nice little slim package there. So Josh was naming all the channels because we had some custom things that went beyond our standard A scene presets, and he was making the custom fader up. So he was plugging away at that. I was checking mics on Thursday, and it was good. And we had a banjo, first ever 6-string banjo. So I can't remember ever having a banjo up on stage. No, recent memory is coming up blank. I can't remember ever having a banjo, and I certainly can't remember ever having a 6-string banjo. So if you're not aware, the 6-string banjo is a curious instrument. It's got all the character and sound of a banjo, like a banjo would. It's got kind of like that, what do you call it? It almost looks like a drum head. Could be the same material as a drum head. It's like a drum head, and it's got this metal bracket around it, and the drum head is in suspension somehow. So they've got this. Oh man, my brain isn't working. I'm blanking on the name here. It's got this surface that is under tension, almost like a drum head, and that helps. That adds to the timbre or the character of the sound. But a banjo is just kind of known for that kind of plucky sound that it makes. So this 6-string banjo anyway was not tuned like a normal banjo would be tuned. It was tuned as if it were a 6-string guitar, and it was played as a guitar, but it added that kind of banjo feel to it, and the way that Tim played it, the very rhythmic kind of strumming, really added a lot of character to some of the songs there. So actually one song in particular. So that was fun, and of course, when in doubt of how to mic a banjo or pick up a banjo, I instinctively just reach for the SM57. Because if you don't know what to do, just throw a 57 on it, and it may not sound amazing, but I'll tell you what, the SM58 and the SM57 in most live sound scenarios will be your friend. Now, if you're micing a grand piano, it's still going to sound like a 57, but you're not going to be wrestling with feedback issues if you try to go for like a large diaphragm condenser. But it depends on what you got in your mic closet. And the reality is, most small churches, if you're a volunteer, you've got a 57 and a 58, and that's just what you use because they're great for live sound environments in terms of rejecting that unwanted off-axis sound. So we went with the 57 on the banjo, and it was okay. I mean, I'm not going to say it was like a brilliant mic selection or anything like that, but it got the job done, and we kind of worked with what we had there. I really didn't spend too much time thinking about the different mics we could use, but that's what we did. What else do we have? We had the banjo, and then sometimes Tim would reach down for his acoustic guitar and play acoustic. Kent was playing acoustic, and then Zach was playing his electric. So at times we had 3 guitars, and that's always a challenge too from a live sound standpoint, to have 3 guitars kind of all in the same sonic budget, if you will. And that was definitely a challenge, but I tried to compensate for that with some filters and some adjustments to EQ, but it's tricky with 3 guitars. So what else can I say? So Josh was training, we did the guitars. What was the next point I was going to say? Guessing as a live sound engineer. So this thought kind of came to mind as I don't know, as I was doing sound on Sunday. There's a certain point in the rehearsal where I went up and asked musicians, hey, could you guys dig in a little deeper, kind of give that performance intensity, for setting levels, essentially, get right up on the microphones, really, because I was getting the sense that people were playing timid. They weren't really playing 100%. And not to say, I'm not saying a skill thing. They weren't playing 100% with skill, but they were still kind of working through the songs. And I'm looking down the clock. Service starts in less than half hour. And I'm like, geez, I haven't even really set up a good mix in overflow or broadcast or even front of house. Like, I'm still kind of waiting for things to pick up a little bit. And so, I mentioned that to the band because I didn't want to be in a place where I had to guess as a live sound engineer. And I think if you've done front of house, if you've done media or church media production at all, there's a point in time where you're going to have to guess at something that you really don't want to have to guess at or shouldn't have to guess at. And I think with experience you can make educated guesses. So what am I talking about? So one of the things I'm talking about is if you are in an organization for a long period of time, you start to learn the habits of musicians, and you start to kind of predict possibly what may happen. So for instance, habits of musicians, there might be a musician that during rehearsal tends to be quiet, and then during an actual service they like kick it up a notch, almost like a 10 dB swing, depending on mic technique and filling their air with vocals and really singing from the bottom of their diaphragm versus singing from their nose, or whatever the case may be. There's certain you can kind of learn that the habits of certain musicians. And so I think where guessing comes in is you see what you're given during rehearsal and you're trying to get a good sound check, and you can almost predict, okay, you know what, their input, I'm going to set the gain here, and I know it's a little bit on the quiet side. I'm going to set the fader here, and I know it's a little on the quiet side, but during service, I guarantee they're going to pick it up a notch and start belting it out. And that's kind of that's one example of what I'm talking about, is guessing as a live sound engineer. And you never want to have to guess. I think we can all say we hate to have to guess like that, but when you're in certain situations, sometimes it's kind of what I think I find myself kind of resorting to that at times, kind of subconsciously. Like, I don't think I'm ever like, oh, let me guess at this, but just thinking through now, I'm kind of like putting a name on it and saying, yeah, actually, I do make a fair amount of guesses. And so the reason why this comes up is because as you're training somebody, you want to train them to the proper theory, right? You want to teach them theory according to a perfect world, like that perfect sound check, where the musicians get right up on the microphone, they got awesome mic technique, and they are filling their lungs with air and belting it out, and they're singing like they're gonna sing. And that's how you want to train the new volunteers to do sound check. Now, getting that out of musicians consistently can be a bit of a challenge. So that's why the guessing thing comes up, and I guess I'm curious as how other people train new folks that just don't have that experience necessarily. Do you prepare, at what point in time do you tell them to break all the rules? So you got to learn all the rules before you can break them, right? I guess that's how it goes. You learn how to do things by the book, and then you're thrown into certain situations, and then you got to kind of break some of the rules sometimes, just because of the way things work out. Anyway, I'd like to hear your thoughts on guessing as a live sound engineer. That's one of the thoughts that's been in my mind. I think maybe for the person doing lyrics, sometimes there's a bit of guessing, just in terms of the timing of it, where you want to get ahead of the timing, and you have a map of like verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, whatever that is. And if things depart from that, do you ever find yourself kind of guessing where the worship leader is going to go if they don't stick to the outline, or they kind of go in a different direction? I bet you there's some guessing that happens there. I don't really do the lyrics and the pro presenter stuff all that much. Actually, I've never done it. I've managed to stay away from Pro Presenter, but I mean, I know how it works and everything, but I haven't had to be the one to format lyrics and do all that fun stuff. So those are my thoughts there. Well, trying to think if I got anything else interesting to say. Other than I saw Batman versus Superman the other night. That was pretty awful. I think we kind of knew it was going to be awful, but we kind of wanted to see the train wreck in a way. We wanted to kind of check it out because we hadn't seen it yet. Like, oh, we should check this movie out. It was pretty bad. I'm trying to think like what made it bad, because like the effects are really good. Actors, you had good actors. I think it comes down to the script writing and the story. It was I think it was confusing to start off with like the typical Batman type of scene where everybody's already seen it like a million times, and it's like, all right, we know the deal here. Bruce goes to a theater with his parents and something horrible happens. But anyway, I'm kind of rambling. I think I'm about to be stuck in traffic. So back to live sound. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this extended media report. But no, I enjoy training new folks, and I'm trying to think about how to do that well. And I was chatting with Pete and Josh, the other Josh, not Josh B. Josh B wasn't there on Sunday. He was there for rehearsal, the trainee. But I think interpersonal stuff and communication is, apart from learning the technology, I think one of the biggest challenges, one of the biggest things to work through is just communication skills from the tech booth or the media booth to musicians and back and forth, and having that good back and forth going. I'll call it communication skills, interpersonal, but it's so important and it's so difficult to do well. And I think it's important to acknowledge that it's difficult to do. Even for somebody who's done it for a long time, it's really easy to think that you're just mentioning something very matter-of-factly, and somebody else, possibly a worship leader, to be up on stage and maybe think you're being critical. It's just easy for that to happen unintentionally. And then so when it does happen, now you've got to kind of deal with this interpersonal type of deal. So anyway, hence the term grumpy sound guy, right? The other thing I wanted to mention real quick in this report video, if anybody's still hanging on watching, I did have one other nugget. So in-ear monitor, so Tim offered his ears to be an in-ear monitor guinea pig. So we've got like 5 channels of in-ear monitors, although one channel is dedicated to the nursery right now, sending audio wirelessly up to the nursery. He volunteered to be a guinea pig, so he used some of those. So we went out and Josh went out and got like 3 different types of like really low budget in-ear monitors, like for $15. Not like super high-end ones, but just enough to kind of get the feel for how in-ear monitors works without spending, $150 or $200 on some sort of like really fancy pair of in-ears. So Tim offered to be a guinea pig, and I set up a mix for him, and that was like the last thing that I did. So I got like the monitor mix set, got the front of house mix set, got fellowship going, broadcast, nursery. I did all those other mixes, and then I went back and did in-ear monitor 2, dedicated to Tim. And before I gave him the pack, I soloed the mix, put it in my headphones. I put up his guitar, 100%, and then I put in the other guitars like 60-70%, and the vocals 60-70%, just enough so he could hear everything else, but he could really hear himself very well. And that was my basic approach for in-ears, was just give just to make things relative, give him 100%, put him up pretty hot in the mix, up all the way, if you will, although it's a fader, so I guess maybe it'd be more accurate for me to say up at 0 dB on the fader, and then like I said, everything else just kind of at like 60-70%, so you could still hear the other stuff, but obviously he was the loudest thing in that mix. And what I really am careful about, and I think anyone doing in-ears for the first time, I think it's really important to think through the potential of what could possibly go wrong with in-ear monitors. What is the worst case scenario? And I think probably the thing that I'm thinking of that I want to make sure I avoid, and I think we train everybody to be super sensitive to this, is that when you're mixing somebody else's ears, that is like its own job in and of itself. I mean, when you're the live sound person and you've got 4 or 5 mixes going on, and then, oh yeah, and by the way, one of them or 2 of them or 3 of them are in-ears, I think it's really important to give it the respect that it's due, because you're controlling levels directly into somebody's head. Now, technically, you should have the same sense of caution, because you're also controlling the speakers that make sound come out and could potentially hurt somebody's ears. If some sound is created that is too loud, it can cause hearing damage, or some sort of feedback event, and you've got that ringing. So there's potential for that. But I feel like it's a little different when it's in somebody's ear canal. It's, you know what I mean? It's not like it's less important than the masses and the whole crowd, but I feel like there's a little bit of a different dynamic there where you're controlling the mix right in somebody's ears. So what my approach was, let me set the mix and listen to it myself, get it to a point where I think it's happy, and then hand over the pack to Tim and say, here you go, I'm not going to touch this mix, no one's going to touch this mix unless you ask me to, and then I'll make an adjustment. But every time an adjustment is made to that mix, I've got it in my ears too, so I hear exactly what I'm doing, and I'm doing that through the Yamaha TF5 Q button. So I'm queuing up that whole aux 2 or aux 3 or whatever the in-ears are being fed from, so I'm hearing everything that happens real time. Now it's kind of a basic thing, kind of goes without saying, but if you're doing in-ears for the first time, I feel like it's really important to stress that you never make an adjustment to an in-ear mix without hearing it for yourself. And I think a lot of people get around this by having personal mixing, like Avions. So you send like a cat cable, and you send 16 channels of digital audio over this cat cable, and you let everybody mix their own monitor mix. And that's one way you kind of can get around that, because then they can do it themselves. Or you can hijack it and fix the mix and then give it back to them to make some adjustments. But that's one thing that came up. So we did practice with the in-ears during rehearsal. I do not believe Tim used in-ears during the actual service, but we did get that practice. Now, I will say that the report about audio quality from those lower end in-ears was that they sounded tinny. It sounded really bad. So Tim said, it sounds really tinny. Of course, he's playing banjo, so it's kind of hard to make a banjo not sound tinny in some ways. But when he switched over to the guitar, it still sounded like there was something funky happening in the high end. And I was trying to see if there was a way on the TF5 to set a different EQ for the aux. And at the channel level, I don't think there is. I think you set input gain, you set the name of the channel, you set EQ, and that feeds all the mixes for that channel. And then you've got to, if you want to possibly roll off some of the high end, you've got to put an EQ across the aux output, which you can do. And I was about to do that, and I said, wait a minute. He's got $15 in-ears, $10 in-ears, like not very expensive in-ears. So before I go to town with EQ, let's see if there's another option. So I brought down a pair of Sony over the ear full driver headphones, that we have kind of like studio headphones. I brought him down some like real headphones. He popped those in. I said, does it still sound tinny? And he said, no, it actually sounds better. So I guess I could have gone with the EQ, but I think it's important to realize that at that point I was probably EQing to compensate not so much for the mix, but to compensate more for the lower end in-ear monitors. So just something to be aware of, that they're not going to have as much bass, and so when they get turned up, the highs are going to get turned up kind of too much, and then the response to the musician is going to be, oh, it sounds tinny, right? So just something to think about. But I think I've been talking for long enough here. Those are my thoughts about this extended media report, this windbag session. Hazelnut. All right, that'll do it. My name is Nate. This is the Volunteer Tech Vlog on the Live Sound 101 YouTube channel. Always love to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments on YouTube and the Live Sound 101 community on Google+. Actually haven't checked that out in a while. I gotta go check in on the Google+ community. There's like over 400 something people over there. It's pretty cool. I've just been so busy with other stuff and work and everything going on. I haven't had a chance to stop in a while, but I gotta go check in there. Maybe post some links to some articles. Yeah. Oh, I gotta talk about the FCC stuff. I gotta post those FCC related things with the 600 megahertz band. So T-Mobile is already starting to light up some of their 600 megahertz gear in certain markets. So while it is legal to operate in the 600 megahertz for another 39 months, you have this grace period to kind of vacate the 600 megahertz that was just sold off through the incentives auction. But that does not guarantee that your technology will work. It guarantees that you won't be sued, but it doesn't guarantee that your technology is going to work. So if you're thinking, oh, I got mics in the 600 megahertz band, I got a 39-month grace period, we're not going to do anything until the end of that 39 months. Well, if T-Mobile decides to move in a half a mile down the road and start playing with their new toys, it's going to squash your low wattage 600 megahertz stuff, because there's going to be some like huge, tens of thousands of wattage gear transmitting on those same frequencies, and so your stuff just isn't going to work. It's just going to go down as soon as T-Mobile turns things on. But you're just not going to be sued until after the 39 months. I think that's how I understand it. The way these laws are written, there's a lot of fine print. There's a lot of lawyer speak. So don't take my word for it, but that's my understanding of how it is. It's just get out of the 600. That's all I can say. Is start figuring your way out of it, because the reality is it's gonna, even though there's a grace period, it's gonna come quicker than I think most people anticipated. But that's probably its own video. But I gotta post some links there in that community. Just realized I haven't done that yet. So anyway, again, I'll close the video. My name is Nate. This is the Volunteer Tech Vlog on the Live Sound 101 YouTube channel, where I drive and talk about live sound, and you can listen in the background as you're working on something else or whatever you're up to. All right. See you in the next video.